What if Daemon Targaryen raised Jon Snow? What if a single act of mercy, offered in the ruins of a burned-out holdfast, could reshape the destiny of an entire continent? What if the boy who might have died as a hidden secret in the north was instead carried south into hands that understood not shame, but ambition? The war is over. Robert Baratheon sits the Iron Throne. The dragons are dead, or so the realm believes. And Eddard Stark rides north through the Riverlands with an infant wrapped in northern wool, a secret heavier than any crown. The rain has stopped, but the road remembers it. Mud clings to the hooves of Ned's horse and to the horses of the 4 men who ride with him, men chosen for their silence more than their swords. The holdfast ahead is a corpse of a building, its walls half collapsed, its timbers black with old fire. Ned does not intend to stop there. He intends to pass it, to ride through the failing afternoon light toward the next crossing, toward home, toward the lie he has already begun to build in his own heart. But a lie, like a road, can be intercepted. He is waiting in the ruins, a man alone, or seeming to be alone, seated upon a pale horse in the shadow of the broken gate. Silver hair, catching what little light survives. A pale sword at his hip that Ned recognizes and wishes he did not. Daemon Targaryen. The name arrives in Ned's mind before the man speaks, and with it, a cascade of impossibilities, because Daemon Targaryen should be dead, should be exiled, should be a rumor swallowed by the narrow sea. Yet here he sits, the last blooded prince of a dragon seed line the histories half forgot, and he is smiling the way a man smiles when he already knows how the conversation ends. "Lord Stark," Daemon says, "you ride heavy for a man carrying so little." Ned's hand tightens on his reins. This is the first move, and he understands it immediately. The prince has not asked a question. He has stated a fact and dressed it as courtesy. He knows, somehow, across all the careful silence Ned has bought and bled for, the prince knows. "I ride north," Ned says. "Neutral, a wall." "You ride north with a child," Daemon answers. "And a child changes everything. Whose child, I wonder? A bastard, they will say, when you bring him home. Your bastard, a stain on your honor. And you, of all men, wearing a stain willingly." He tilts his head. "You are not a man who takes stains willingly, Lord Stark. So the stain must hide something worse, or something better." Consider the position on the board. Ned has 4 men. Daemon appears to have none, but a man who reveals himself alone in ruins is a man who has arranged the ground to his liking, and Ned has fought enough wars to know that visible strength is rarely the whole of an army. To draw steel here is to gamble the child's life on a fight he cannot be certain of winning. And more than that, more than the tactics, more than the numbers, Ned is tired of blood. He has seen the bodies of Rhaegar's little ones wrapped in Lannister crimson at the foot of the throne. He has watched Robert call it justice. He will not add to that count. Not here, not with this child. "Say what you want," Ned tells him. "Direct. I had heard that of you." Daemon dismounts, unhurried, and the movement is a message in itself. "I am in no danger, and I know it. I want the boy. I want him living. I want him where Robert's dogs will never find the scent, where no red priest and no gold cloak and no whispering eunuch will ever put a name to his face." He steps closer. "You want the same thing, Lord Stark. We simply disagree about who should hold the leash." Ned understands the trap in the offer even as it is spoken. If he keeps the boy lives as a lie inside Winterfell, hidden, but hidden badly, because secrets in a castle full of servants have a way of finding air. If he gives the boy to Daemon, the boy vanishes entirely from Robert's reach. Safer, cleaner, and infinitely more dangerous, because a Targaryen child, raised by a Targaryen prince, is not a hidden shame. It is a coiled thing, a future. "Swear it," Ned says. "Swear the boy will never be raised as a claimant. Swear he will never be turned against the throne." Daemon holds his gaze. And here is the exquisite cruelty of the moment, invisible to Ned, but plain to any who could read the prince's mind. Daemon intends to swear, and Daemon intends to lie, and he will craft the lie so precisely that no god could name it perjury. "I swear," he says slowly, "that I will never raise this child to make war upon a throne he has no cause to want. A vow shaped like a promise and hollow as a drum, because a throne one has cause to want is a different matter entirely, and causes can be manufactured, and boys can be taught." Ned hears the words he needs to hear. He does not hear the ones left unsaid. He hands the child down. The exchange is silent. A bundle of northern wool passing from a warden's arms to a prince's, and with it, a piece of the future breaking off from one road and rolling onto another. Ned turns his horse before the weight of it can settle on him. He rides. He does not look back, because looking back would make it real, and he has spent his life learning what to let himself feel. That night, in the ruins, Daemon builds a small fire in the shelter of a broken wall and holds the boy close to its dying warmth. "Jon," he murmurs, testing the northern name, the camouflage, the lie he will wear in public. Then he lowers his mouth to the child's ear and whispers something else, something true, something that has waited 17 years of history to be spoken aloud. "Aegon." And in that word, the board resets. The crossing takes 11 days, and in those 11 days, Daemon Targaryen begins to reshape a child. Consider the arithmetic of it. A boy of 9 months cannot be taught. He can only be surrounded, and so Daemon surrounds him. He speaks Valyrian to the infant, while the galley cuts through gray water, not because the child understands, but because the ear learns before the mind does, and a sound heard in the cradle becomes a sound the tongue trusts. He holds the boy at the prow when the wind is calm, and he names things. Sea, sky, blood. He names the last one twice. Pentos rises from the haze, like a thing dreamed rather than built. A city of red brick towers, and flat-roofed manses, and the tall square keeps of magisters grown fat on trade. Daemon has chosen well. Pentos is neutral ground, a merchant city that bows to no crown and remembers no oaths, close enough to Westeros to strike and far enough to hide. He purchases a fortified manse behind high walls near the eastern gate, and he pays in Bravosi coin that leaves no trail back to any Targaryen name. He is a sellsword lord here, a man called something other than what he is. The lie fits him like an old glove. The years fold forward. Watch how the boy grows into the shape prepared for him. By 4, Jon speaks Valyrian before he speaks the common tongue, and Daemon corrects his pronunciation with a patience the prince has never shown any living soul. By 6, the boy holds a wooden sword and stands in the courtyard at dawn, while Daemon walks slow circles around him, correcting the angle of a wrist, the placement of a foot, the way weight must live in the hips and not the shoulders. By 8, the wooden sword is a blunted steel one, and the boy bleeds sometimes, and Daemon does not comfort him when he does. He tells him instead that pain is information, that the body remembers what the mind forgets, that a scar is only a lesson written where you cannot lose it. And in the evenings, by lamplight, there is the other education, the bloodier one. Daemon teaches him the history of House Targaryen, the way a general teaches to reign, not as glory, as mechanism. He tells the boy of Aegon the Conqueror, of the Field of Fire, of dragons that turned armies into ash and left the ash to remember. He tells him of the dance, and here his voice changes. Here it grows careful, because the dance is his own history, and he tells it as a man who lived it once and lost. He does not tell the boy which pieces he moved. He tells him only that the game was lost by those who hesitated and won, briefly, by those who did not. Then he closes the book. He always closes the book at the moment the boy most wants it open. This too is teaching. You are not a bastard, Daemon tells him, again and again, until the words become bone. You are the true-born son of a prince and a princess, wed in the sight of gods. The realm has told you a lie. We are simply going to correct it. If you're enjoying this journey so far, consider subscribing to the channel. I upload brand new alternate histories of Westeros every single day, so if that's something you enjoy, I'd love to have you here. Now, let's see what happens next. The boy believes him. Boys believe the men who feed them. But steel does not shape without resistance, and Jon has resistance in him, a northern hardness threaded through the fire. He is 11 when the sellsword insults him, a Taroshi with a green beard and too much wine in him, in a tavern near the harbor where Daemon has gone to measure the temper of the Golden Company's captains. The man calls the boy a whore's whelp, a bastard bought and paraded, and he says it loud enough to be heard. Daemon crosses the room without appearing to hurry. There is a moment, a single moment where mercy is still possible, where a lesser man would have bought the fellow another cup and turned the insult into a jest. Daemon opens the man's throat instead, quickly, almost gently. The way a butcher does work, he has done 10,000 times. The boy does not cry, but he is very quiet on the walk home, and when they reach the manse, he turns on his guardian with his jaw set hard. He was drunk, Jon says. He was a fool. You did not have to kill him. No, Daemon agrees. I chose to. That is worse. Daemon regards him in the lamplight, and for once, there is something almost like pride in the prince's cold face, because the boy is arguing, and boys who argue are boys who think. Listen to me, he says, and he crouches so their eyes are level. You believe mercy is a virtue. It is not. Mercy is a currency, and it has value only when the man who shows it could just as easily have shown a blade. A man who cannot kill and chooses not to is not merciful. He is merely weak, and calling his weakness virtue is how the weak survive being ruled. When you can take a life and choose to spare it, that is mercy. Everything before that is fear wearing a prettier name. Jon says nothing. Mercy without power is suicide, Daemon finishes. I will not raise a corpse. I am raising a king. And the boy, who does not yet have the words to answer, files the lesson away in the place where the scars live. The groundwork spreads outward, like roots, through dark soil, in the years that follow. Daemon dines with magisters, lending them gold and lending them fear in equal measure, and they come to owe him more than they can comfortably repay. He drinks with the captains of the Golden Company, exiles who have waited 3 generations for a Blackfire banner, and might, he suspects, settle for a Targaryen one if the coin were right and the cause were dressed properly. He measures them, he counts their spears, and on the night word arrives from the west, a raven's message passed through 3 hands and a Bravosi bank. Daemon breaks the seal, reads 4 lines, and goes very still. Robert Baratheon is dead. What if the truth is a weapon that a man can hold in reserve for years, waiting for the precise moment when its detonation serves him best? Daemon Targaryen understands this. He has understood it since the first night he carried the infant out of Dorne, wrapped in a Stark cloak that smelled of a woman he had never quite forgiven the North for keeping. The truth was always coming. The only question was who would arm it, and when. Jon arms it himself, at 15, in a way Daemon did not plan, but is not displeased to see. The boy has grown careless in his curiosity, or perhaps too careful. He finds the letters in a cedar box beneath a false panel in Daemon's writing desk, a hiding place too obvious for a man of Daemon's cunning to have used by accident. Some part of Daemon left them where a determined boy might one day look. The letters are old, the ink faded, the hand unmistakably that of Eddard Stark. They speak of a promise. They speak of a sister. They speak of a child who must never be known for what he is, and of gold, sent east across the narrow sea to keep that child breathing in a place no Southron blade could reach. Jon reads them 3 times. Then he goes to find Daemon, and the letters are shaking in his hand, and his voice is a thing being held together by will alone. "Tell me," Jon says, "all of it. No lessons, no riddles, the truth." And Daemon, who has waited 15 years for this exact posture, the boy standing, demanding, no longer a child asking to be told a story, sets down his cup and gives it to him. Not all of it. He is not a fool, but enough. He tells Jon of Lyanna Stark, not the abduction the realm believes, but the marriage the realm was never permitted to see. He tells him of Rhaegar, of a prophecy that ate a prince alive, of a second wife taken while the first still lived, of a tower in the Red Mountains of Dorne where a girl bled out bringing a boy into a world that would have killed him for existing. He tells Jon that his mother did not die of fever in a brothel, that his father was not some faithless soldier, that the name he has carried, Bastard, Snow, Nothing, was a shroud pulled over a crown. "You are not a Snow," Daemon says. "You never were. You are the last true-born son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark. Ned Stark lied to the world to keep you alive, and I stole you from him to keep you useful." Jon does not fall. Daemon watches for it, and it does not come. Instead, the boy goes pale and still, the way a man goes still when the ground beneath him is revealed to have been water all along. Everything he believed about himself dissolves in a single afternoon. The bastard's shame that shaped him, the Stark honor he clung to as the one clean thing his blood might claim, gone, replaced by something vaster and colder and far more dangerous. This is the moment Daemon has engineered. Grief is a furnace, and he intends to forge something in it. "You have 2 choices," Daemon tells him, and here is the artistry of the thing, for it is not 2 choices at all. You may embrace your blood, learn the game, take back what was stolen from your house and yourself, and one day sit a throne that is yours by every right that matters. Or a pause, deliberate, weighted. Or you may reject it. Walk out of this manse a nameless man, with no house and no history, and live and die as no one. I will not stop you. I will simply never speak to you again. He does not raise his voice. He does not need to. A boy drowning in the wreckage of his own identity does not choose exile. He grabs for the only rope offered, and Daemon has arranged that there is only one rope, and that it leads exactly where he wishes the boy to go. But Jon is not entirely his creature. Not yet. That night, alone, with a single candle and the letters spread before him like the pieces of a broken thing, Jon does something he tells no one. He takes up a quill. He writes to Winterfell. He writes to a man he has never met and a family he has never known. The Starks, who share his mother's blood. The honorable name that Daemon mocks as weakness wearing a prettier face. He writes as the boy he was before this afternoon, the one who believed that mercy was virtue and that a man's word was worth more than his sword. He writes to the north that is calling to him through his mother's ghost. And then he does not send it. He folds the letter. He holds it over the candle flame, and for a long moment the paper hovers there, close enough to feel the heat, close enough that the corner begins to brown. He does not finish the burning. He does not need to. He tucks the letter, unsent and unburnt, into the lining of his doublet, against his chest, where it will remain. A divided heart worn as armor, a loyalty split down the middle before he has ever drawn a sword in earnest. This is the first fracture. Every choice that damns him later will trace its origin to this candlelit room, to a boy who could neither send the letter nor destroy it, who chose instead to carry the weight of both selves at once. Daemon does not know about the letter. It is the one variable he has failed to account for, the small honesty the boy keeps hidden even from the man who made him. And it will matter. In the end, it will matter more than either of them can foresee. The groundwork spreads outward, like roots through dark soil in the years that follow. And on the night word arrives from the west, Daemon breaks the seal, reads 4 lines, and goes very still. Robert Baratheon is dead. What if a dying man's greatest weapon was not an army, but a wager? What if the whole architecture of a rebellion rested not on steel or gold or the loyalty of sellswords, but on the untested blood of a boy who did not yet know what he was? Daemon has spent a fortune others cannot imagine. He has drained coffers, sold heirlooms of the Blackfire line, borrowed against promises he may never live to keep. And he has done all of it for objects that most of the world believes to be nothing more than beautiful, useless stone. He leads Jon down beneath the villa in Pentos, past the wine cellars, past the storerooms, to a chamber warmed by braziers kept burning day and night. There, on cushions of dark velvet, rest the eggs. 3 of them, each acquired through a separate chain of merchants and mystics stretching back to Karth and beyond, to the shadowed markets of Ashai, where men speak of dragons the way other men speak of the dead. Jon looks at them and sees stone. Daemon looks at them and sees the future. This is the difference between them, and it has always been the difference. The man calculates. The boy hesitates. Daemon does not explain the eggs the way a scholar would explain them. He explains them the way a general explains terrain, as advantage, as leverage, as the single asset that would render every other consideration secondary. A pretender with a claim is a nuisance. A pretender with a dragon is a war. And a war, Daemon knows, is the only condition under which the boy's parentage becomes not a liability to be hidden, but a banner to be raised. For years he has waited. He has fed the eggs to the fires and watched them do nothing. He has consulted red priests and sorcerers and charlatans, and each has taken his coin and given him back only riddles. Blood, they tell him. It must be blood, and fire, and death. And so, on the night a captain of the Golden Company dies of a wound that festered past saving, Daemon sees not a loss but an opportunity, and he moves toward it the way a chess player moves toward a square he has been eyeing for hours. He does not order Jon into the flames. That is the thing Jon will remember afterward, the thing that will trouble him in the quiet hours. Daemon does not order. He simply stands at the edge of the pyre as the fire climbs. the dead captain wrapped in linen at its heart, the eggs nestled among the burning wood, and he speaks in a voice pitched low enough that only Jon can hear. He speaks of blood. He speaks of Old Valyria, of the 14 fires, of ancestors who walked through flame and emerged crowned. And then he says the words that will hang between them for the rest of their lives. If you are what I believe you are, the fire will not touch you. If you are not, then it was never going to work anyway. Jon steps forward, believing he will die. This is the truth of it, the truth beneath the legend that will later be told. He does not step into the fire out of faith. He steps into it out of a kind of exhausted surrender, a willingness to have the question answered at last, one way or the other. The heat swallows him, and then nothing. No pain, no burning. The flames curl around him like water around a stone, and he stands in the heart of the pyre alive, whole, his skin unmarked, his breath steady, in a place where breath should not be possible. 2 of the eggs remain stone, but the third, the neglected one, the one Daemon had all but given up on, the one set apart from the others out of some half-forgotten superstition, the third begins to crack, and from it, wet and small and furious with the first anger of a living thing, emerges a dragon. Jon names it Vermax, a name pulled from the old histories, from the dance, and he does not know why the name comes to him, except that it feels correct, the way certain truths feel correct before the mind has assembled the reasons. Daemon watches, and for the first time in years, something in his careful calculations breaks open. He has spent his life believing that men make their own fates through will and cunning and the ruthless application of advantage. Now he stands before a boy who has walked through fire and a dragon drawing its first breaths, and he feels, for one dangerous moment, that history itself has bent toward him, that the design he thought he was imposing on the world was in fact the world's design all along. It is a seductive thought. It is also, though he cannot see it yet, the beginning of his undoing. For a man who believes destiny is on his side stops accounting for the ways it might turn. Jon feels no triumph. He feels the weight. He understands, standing there with the small creature curling against his chest, that everything is different now, that the letter tucked against his heart and the dragon in his arms cannot both survive, that the boy who once wanted only a name at Winterfell has become something the whole world will hunt. And the world learns quickly. A miracle does not stay buried. Whispers move through the free cities faster than any rider. A dragon reborn in Pentos, a Targaryen boy who walked through flame. The rumors reach the ears of allies who begin to calculate what such a weapon is worth, and the ears of enemies who begin to calculate what it will cost to destroy it before it grows. In Westeros, a spy master with no true name reads the reports and sets his little birds to flight. Daemon knows the timeline has collapsed. The years of patient preparation are over. He gathers his captains in the warm dark of the villa, the dragon squalling somewhere above them, and he says the words that will set everything in motion at last. We move now. We move before they do. What if the most dangerous man in the world owned no army, held no title, and swore allegiance to no throne, only to a vision he had carried in silence for decades? Across the narrow sea, in the shadowed corridors beneath the Red Keep, a soft man, in soft robes, reads a report by the light of a single candle. He does not smile. He does not frown. He simply reads and rereads and lets the words settle into the vast machinery of his mind. A dragon reborn, a Targaryen boy who walked through flame and lived, and beside that boy, the rogue prince, the last living son of the old blood, patient and venomous, and finally moving. Varys has spent long years cultivating a different seed, another boy, hidden and shaped, groomed to be everything a kingdom could want in a restored king, gentle where it serves, learned, malleable, a candle he has kept sheltered from every wind. And now, without warning, a second flame has caught in the east, brighter and wilder than anything he engineered, tended by a man who cannot be controlled and would not thank him if he tried. This is the problem that keeps the spider awake. Not which claimant is stronger, but which claimant serves the realm, and which serves him. He does not want a dragon. He wants a ruler he can steer, and a boy raised by Daemon Targaryen, a boy who has already tasted fire and survived, is not a piece he can move. He is a piece that moves itself. So the little birds take flight, not to kill, not yet, to measure, to watch the boy, to weigh him, to learn whether Jon Snow can be turned, or bought, or bent, or whether he must simply be removed before he grows into something no spider's web can hold. Daemon has been expecting them. This is the part the spider does not fully grasp, the flaw in an otherwise flawless design. Daemon has played this game longer than Varys has been alive, and he plays it without the burden of a conscience or a cause. He knows what a watched man feels like. He has felt eyes on his back in 100 cities, and he knows how to turn those eyes into instruments. So when a merchant with 2 clean hands lingers 3 days too long at the wharves of Pentos, asking questions dressed as small talk, Daemon does not have him killed. He has him taken. The agent wakes in the lower rooms of the villa, where the warm dark turns cold and the sea cannot be heard. Daemon does not raise his voice. He rarely does. He sits across from the man with a cup of wine and speaks as though they are old friends discussing the weather, and every word is a knife laid gently on the table between them. "Tell me who sent you," he says. "Tell me what he wants. Tell me about the other boy." The agent says nothing. At first, men trained by the spider are trained to say nothing, and this one holds longer than most. But Daemon has time, and patience, and instruments older than mercy. He does not enjoy it. He simply does it, the way a smith heats iron, because the shape he wants requires the heat. Jon is there. This is Daemon's choice, and it is deliberate. He wants the boy to see the cost of the crown he is being fitted for, wants him to understand that the game does not pause for tender hearts. But Daemon has miscalculated. Not the boy's stomach, the boy's will. "Stop," Jon says. The word lands in the cold room like a stone in still water. Daemon does not stop. He looks at Jon the way a teacher looks at a student who has spoken out of turn, waiting for the lesson to correct itself. It does not. "He'll tell you more if he lives," Jon says. "He has already told you the shape of it. A spy master, a second claimant, a plan to weigh us against each other. A man who thinks he can walk out of this room will bargain. A man who knows he cannot will only bleed and die and take the rest with him." Daemon considers this. And here is the thing worth noting, the thing that makes the rogue prince more dangerous than any brute. He is not too proud to recognize a better move when it is placed before him. The boy is right. A corpse tells no more tales. A living agent, sent home with the wrong information, becomes a channel through which Daemon can pour whatever poison he pleases directly into the spider's ear. So he sets down his instruments. He pours the man a cup of wine with his own hand, and he begins, patiently, to learn everything: the network, the codes, the safe houses, the name and place of the boy Varys has been raising in secret, the whole architecture of a plan that has been decades in the building. Then he begins to lie. He feeds the agent a version of events crafted with surgical care. The dragon is weaker than reported. Daemon is cautious, unwilling to move for years. The boy is a pretender, unremarkable, a rumor inflated by desperate exiles. Every falsehood shaped to make the spider relax, to make him look east and see nothing worth fearing, while Daemon plans an invasion that answers to no one's design but his own. When it is done, the agent is released to the road, carrying his poison home, and Daemon turns to Jon in the cold room and studies him for a long moment. "You cost me nothing," he says at last, "and you gained me a mouth in the enemy's house. That was well played." It is not warmth. Daemon does not offer warmth, but it is respect, grudging and real. The first time he has looked at the boy and seen not a weapon he is sharpening, but a mind that might one day outmatch his own. Jon holds his gaze, and in that silence, something shifts between them, the balance of who leads and who follows, beginning, at last, to turn. What if the strongest army in the world could be bought, and the only question that mattered was whether you had enough to pay for it? This is the calculation Daemon carries with him as the ship crosses the narrow sea and threads its way up the Rhoyne toward Volantis. He knows the Golden Company, the way a merchant knows the weight of coin in his hand. 10,000 swords, elephants, discipline that no sellsword band has ever matched, forged from the bones of exiles who fled Westeros generations ago and never stopped dreaming of the shores they lost, and a single promise carved into their history like a wound that will not close. Their word, once given, is not broken. They do not run. They do not betray a contract signed in blood. That is the reputation. Daemon knows better than to believe reputations. They arrive as the sun bleeds low over the black walls of Volantis, that ancient city where the wealthy hide behind ramparts and the poor swarm the streets beyond. And Daemon watches the way the harbor stills when the dragon's shadow passes over the water. This is the point. This is the whole of it. He has not brought Jon here to negotiate with words. He has brought the dragon, because a Targaryen restoration is a thing men can doubt, a rumor, a pretender's fantasy, but a living dragon perched upon the ruins of an old fighting arena is a fact that cannot be argued with. It is legitimacy made flesh. It is the past returned. The leadership of the company receives them in a hall of cracked marble, and Daemon reads the room the way he reads a battlefield. He sees the ones who are already convinced, the ones who want the reconquest they were bred to crave. He sees the ones who calculate the gold, and he sees the others, the quiet faction near the back, hands still, faces unreadable, who carry within them a loyalty older than any contract, the memory of the Blackfires, the Black Dragon against the Red, 5 rebellions across a century, all crushed, all ending in exile and death, and yet the wound persists, because men do not surrender their grievances simply because they lost. They nurse them, they pass them down like heirlooms. To serve a Targaryen restoration is, to these men, to kneel to the very house their ancestors bled to overthrow. Daemon understands this. He offers what he came to offer: reclaimed lands in Westeros, lordships, titles, the estates their grandfathers were driven from, and he watches the greed and the pride war within them. Gold answers many objections, but it does not answer the objection of blood. And here, for the first time, Daemon does something he has never done before. He steps back. He lets the boy speak. Jon rises, and he does not speak like a prince. He speaks like a man who has counted the graves. He tells them he knows why they hesitate. He names the Blackfire memory aloud. which no diplomat would dare, and by naming it, he strips it of its power to fester in silence. He tells them the wars they remember, red dragon against black, usurper against usurper, were all the same war, the same sickness. A throne passed from hand to bloody hand, while the realm burned beneath it. He does not ask them to forget their grievance. He asks them to end the thing that created it. One king, one crown, no more divided loyalties, no more rival claimants breeding 100 years of exile and slaughter. End the cycle, he says, and there is no more Blackfire, no more Targaryen, only the realm, whole, and men who fought to make it so. He does not finish with a flourish, he simply stops, and the silence that follows is not the silence of men unmoved. Daemon watches the faces change. He sees the calculation shift in the eyes of the doubters, and he marks, with cold precision, that it is not the words alone that turn them. It is the dragon breathing on the ruins outside, and the promise of gold, and the boy's honesty landing at exactly the moment those other pressures had already softened the ground. Three forces converging. Jon believes his speech has won them. Daemon knows better. The speech was the last stone laid atop a foundation already built by fear and greed. But he does not correct the boy. Let him believe. Belief is useful in a leader, so long as someone beside him remembers the truth. The alliance is sealed the old way. A blade drawn across the palm, blood mingled with wine, the oath spoken in the tongue of Valyria that binds the company to its contracts. 10,000 swords for the cause of restoration. The men who carried the Blackfire grief pressed their bleeding hands to the same cup as the rest, and Jon watches them do it with something close to triumph. Daemon watches too, and he thinks, they have sworn to gold before, they have sworn to men who paid, and they have honored the sword so long as the payment held and the winning looked likely. But an oath sworn to a cause is only as strong as the cause's fortunes. Let the war turn. Let a richer buyer appear, or a losing season stretch too long, and blood oaths become ink to be dissolved. He does not say this. He files it away, in the cold ledger where he keeps every weakness of every ally, because a man who does not anticipate betrayal has already begun to lose. That night, aboard the ship, Jon speaks of the company as friends now, brothers bound by the cut of the blade. Daemon lets him. He looks out over the dark water, toward the walls of Volantis, and says only that they should be paid well, and paid on time, and never given cause to count what the other side might offer. Jon does not hear the warning inside the words. He hears agreement, and Daemon, marking even that, understands there is one lesson the boy has not yet learned, the most dangerous lesson of all, and that when he learns it, it will cost him. What if a secret carried to the grave could rise again? What if the truth Eddard Stark swallowed whole, chewed down to silence, buried beneath years of quiet shame, was never truly gone at all, only sleeping, waiting for the right season and the right hand to unearth it? Far to the south, in a city of red stone and hot wind, a king lies dying by degrees. Robert Baratheon does not know how to die quickly. He does it the way he did everything, loudly and slowly, drowning in wine and boar blood and the weight of a crown he never wanted. Around his sickbed the lions gather. They do not roar. Lions rarely roar when they are winning. They arrange the pieces gently. A marriage here, a debt called in there, a hand replaced, a small council reshaped, until the realm belongs to House Lannister in all but name. Daemon Targaryen, watching from across the sea through 100 paid eyes, understands the shape of it before the players in the game do. A dying stag, a pride of lions, and somewhere in the cold north, a memory that could undo them all. So he sends men north, not soldiers, not banners, men with plain cloaks and plausible errands, traders in wool and fur, penitent septons, a singer or two with clever ears. Their task is simple, and it is delicate. Probe, listen, discover whether the North remembers, whether the love the Starks bore Lyanna still burns somewhere beneath the frost, or whether the years have banked it to ash. Daemon does not ask them to promise anything. He asks them only to test the ice, to see where it holds and where it cracks. A commander who does not know the ground beneath his feet is a commander already falling. Jon watches these arrangements with a hunger he cannot fully name. For years he has been Daemon's ward, Daemon's blade, Daemon's careful project. Now, for the first time, the North is not an abstraction on a painted map. It is home. It is the place he never saw, peopled by a family he was raised to believe wanted no part of him. And there is one name among the Stark names that pulls at him harder than the rest. Robb, the true-born son, the heir, the boy who grew up in Winterfell with a warm hearth and a father's hand on his shoulder, living the life that might, in another turning of the world, have been Jon's own. He goes to Daemon and he asks for something, not demands. He has learned better than to demand of Daemon Targaryen, but asks, with the careful weight of a man who has thought long before speaking. He wants to make contact himself, directly, through a single trusted intermediary, a man of the North who can be trusted to carry a message and carry his silence with it. Daemon studies him across the table for a long moment. He sees the sentiment in it, and sentiment is a flaw. But he also sees something colder underneath, something useful. A living claimant reaching out with his own hand carries a weight no agent's whisper can match. If it works, it binds Robb Stark to Jon with a private thread, kin to kin, before any lord or council can meddle. If it fails, it costs a single messenger and reveals nothing the lions do not already fear. Daemon weighs the risk. He allows it. The message is written in a code the Starks once used, dredged up from Daemon's memory of old alliances and older wars. A cipher Ned would have known. It says little on its surface. Underneath, it says everything. It says that Lyanna's son lives. It says that the boy taken from the Tower of Joy did not die as the tale was told, but was carried across the sea and raised in fire, and that he remembers his blood, and that he reaches now toward the north. In Winterfell, Robb Stark reads it twice, then a third time. His hands are steady on the parchment, but only because he is holding them steady, the way his father taught him to hold everything he could not yet understand. His mother's brother is dying in the south. His father is dead, and now a ghost writes to him from Essos, claiming a name that changes the shape of the world. He does not burn the letter. That is his first mistake, or perhaps his first act of faith. He does not know which yet. The northern lords, when they learn of it, split like green wood. Some remember Lyanna, some remember the rebellion, and what the dragons cost them, and they would sooner die than kneel to Targaryen blood again, no matter whose belly carried it. An unproven boy across the sea, they say, a pretender, a trap sprung by exiles who smell weakness in the realm. Others are quieter, more dangerous in their quiet, men who calculate, who see a dying stag and gathering lions and a claimant with dragonfire behind him, and who understand that the North's oldest instinct is to survive. And in her chambers, Catelyn Stark holds the truth in both hands and cannot set it down. The boy she resented for 16 years, the bastard she could not bear to look upon at her husband's table, the living proof, she always believed, of Ned's one betrayal. Not a bastard. Never a bastard. Lyanna's true-born son by Rhaegar Targaryen, and Ned's honor whole, and her own long coldness a cruelty spent on a child who had done nothing but exist. Vindication and dread war inside her, and she cannot tell which will win. Because if this is true, then everything is true. The danger, the claim, the war waiting to unfold like a banner in wind. She thinks of her sons. She thinks of Robb, holding a letter he should have burned. And she rises, and she goes to find him, because there are words that must be spoken before the North speaks them for her. What if a king's death is not an ending but an ignition? A stag falls in the Kingswood, gored, drunk, ruined by wine and boar and the slow rot of a man who ruled a realm he never wanted. Robert Baratheon dies as he lived, careless of consequence, and in the space where his heartbeat used to be, the whole board tilts. Because a throne without a king is a throne with 100 claimants, and the moment word of his death rides north and south and west, the pieces begin to move. Stannis on his rock, Renly with his roses, a boy called king in the Red Keep who is no Baratheon at all, and across the narrow sea, something the others did not plan for, something with wings. Consider what changes when a Targaryen is not a rumor but a certainty. In the old telling, the War of the Five Kings is a contest among stags and lions and wolves and krakens, a bloody arithmetic of Westerosi houses tearing at one another, while the last dragons remain a beggar's dream in a distant east. But this is not that war. This is a war fought in the shadow of a name every player knows and every player fears. Daemon Targaryen has spent 16 years making that name real. He has spent gold and patience and blood on it. And now, with Robert cold and the Seven Kingdoms turning on themselves, he does the thing he has waited a lifetime to do. He moves. The letters burn in Pentos, contracts, coin tallies, the careful correspondence of a man who bought an army one loyalty at a time. Daemon watches them curl to ash in the brazier, because a thing written down can be stolen, and a thing remembered cannot. The Golden Company musters on the shore, 10,000 men who have never broken a contract, and behind them a name that draws sellswords and second sons and exiles like iron filings to a lodestone. Daemon does not shout. He does not rally. He simply stands upon the deck of the lead galley and looks west, toward the water he must cross, and thinks of the last time a Targaryen sailed to take a crown. He does not intend to fail as those before him failed. He has one advantage they did not. Above the fleet, Vermax turns. The dragon is grown now, not the largest of its ancient forebears, not the world-ender of song, but large enough to bear a rider, large enough to break a fleet, and the rider is Jon. Jon who was a bastard and is not. Jon who learned to hold a sword under a father who was not his father. Jon who has spent his life being told what he could become, and now becomes it in the space of a single afternoon over the stepstones. The opposing ships come to contest the crossing, sent by lords who thought a dragon was a story told to frighten children. They learn otherwise. Fire falls from a clear sky. Timber that took a year to build burns in minutes. Men who prayed to the warrior drown in armor beneath a shadow with wings, and those who survive carry the tale inland like a plague of awe, because that is what a dragon truly is. Not a weapon, a rumor made flesh, and rumor wins wars. Here the two men who love each other most in the world disagree. Daemon wants Dragonstone. It is the sensible move, the move any conqueror would make. an island fortress in Blackwater Bay, seat of Targaryen kings, a fist raised at the very throat of King's Landing. Take it, hold it, gather strength, then strike. This is the calculus of a man who has survived by never overreaching. And Jon? Jon says no. Dragonstone is a rock, Jon says, and Daemon's hand tightens on the rail. A rock puts us behind walls and lets them call us invaders. If I land there, I am a Targaryen come to take what was taken. If I land in the Stormlands, I am a Targaryen come home to fight for the small folk while lions burn their fields. Daemon studies him. The boy has learned. That is the danger and the pride of it both. The boy has learned to think 3 moves past the obvious, to weigh not only ground but story, not only where an army stands, but what the people watching believe it stands for. The Stormlands are open, Daemon says. No walls to fall back on. You bleed on open ground. I want to bleed on open ground, Jon answers. I want them to see it. I want the small folk to watch a dragon fight beside them and not above them. Daemon does not finish his objection. He does not need to. He has spent 16 years shaping a weapon, and the weapon has become a mind of its own. And there is grief in that, and there is triumph. And the two are not so different in the heart of a man who was always a second son. He turns his face to the west once more. He lets the boy win the argument, because the boy is right, and because a king who cannot be told he is right is not a king at all. So the fleet does not turn for Dragonstone. It sails for the Stormlands, for Cape Wrath, and the long shore where Baratheon and Lannister banners have marched to secure a claim that no longer belongs to them alone. Jon lands where no strategist would expect him, in the soft underbelly of the war, and the small folk who have known only tax and levy and the tramp of armies come out to see the thing in the sky. A dragon, low over the fields, its rider a boy, with the north in his bones and the blood of the last dragons in his veins. Some kneel, some flee, all of them remember. And in a war camp far to the east, a raven takes wing carrying 3 words that will reach a king who thinks his war is going according to plan. A dragon has landed, and the plan begins, quietly, to come apart. What if the 2 most important young men in the north had never met, and then, on a cold morning under a banner of truce, they finally did? What if everything that came after hinged not on armies or dragons, but on a single conversation between a dragon-raised prince and a wolf-blooded king in a tent pitched halfway between 2 hosts that could destroy each other? The place chosen is a low field of frost-burnt grass, a stretch of neutral ground where neither party holds the high side. This matters. Daemon insisted on high ground and was overruled, and the fact that Jon overruled him on so small a thing is a detail that Daemon files away and does not forget. A tent stands in the middle of the field, plain canvas, no sigil sewn upon it. 20 riders wait on each side, close enough to see, too far to hear, and into that tent walk 2 young men who share more than either would first admit. Robb Stark comes first, because he is the one who requested the parley, and because a king in the north does not arrive second to any man. He is broad where Jon is lean, auburn where Jon is dark, but the resemblance sits beneath the skin, in the way both of them measure a room before they speak, in the stillness they wear like armor. They were raised on the same stories. That is the thing no council could have predicted. Jon was taken from Winterfell as an infant, raised by a Targaryen exile in the free cities, and then in the fire of reconquest. And yet the North lives in his bones all the same, put there by nurse tales and by a name he was never quite allowed to carry. Robb speaks of the war, of the Lannisters, of the debt owed to the North for old betrayals. Jon listens more than he speaks, a habit Daemon taught him and never quite mastered himself. And then Jon says the thing that no one on his own side has authorized him to say: the North should be free. He does not phrase it as a bribe. He phrases it as a recognition of something already true, a fact of the world that the crown has been too proud to admit. "Grant me your swords against the lions and the stags," he says, "and I will not hold the North as a conquered thing. I will hold it as a friend, or not at all." Robb Stark, who came to this tent expecting to bargain for scraps of autonomy, finds himself offered the whole loaf, and the offering unmakes him a little. He had prepared for a lion in dragon's skin. He finds instead a young man who speaks of the North the way a man speaks of a home he has been kept from all his life. Outside the tent, Daemon Targaryen learns of the offer the moment Jon returns to his own lines, and the learning of it is a kind of wound. Consider the mind of a man who has spent his entire life reaching for a crown that was always given to someone else. Daemon Targaryen was a second son, a rogue prince, a man who conquered kingdoms and handed them to boys with better claims. He raised Jon Snow to be the vessel of everything he could never hold: a unified 7 kingdoms, a dragon on the Iron Throne, with Daemon standing just behind it, the hand that made the king, the true power behind the painted face of legitimacy. And now the boy he made proposes to give away a third of the realm before the war is even won. The argument happens in the open. This is Jon's choice, and it is the more devastating for it. Daemon would have taken the quarrel behind canvas, would have kept the split private, would have preserved the fiction of a united command. Jon lets it happen where the lords can see, because he understands something Daemon has not yet grasped. A king who is only ever seen to agree with his advisor is not a king. He is a puppet, and puppets do not command loyalty. Wolves do not follow strings. "You cannot give away the North," Daemon says, and his voice carries the old iron, the tone that has made braver men than Jon go quiet. "We bleed for a whole realm, or we bleed for nothing." "We bleed for a realm worth having," Jon answers, "and a realm held by conquest is a realm that will rise the moment we look away." The North does not need to be conquered. It needs to be trusted. Trust it, and it will never break. They are not arguing about the North. Both of them know this. They are arguing about the shape of the thing they are building, about whether it will be an empire or an alliance, about whether the sword or the open hand rules in the end. And they are arguing about which of them is the true architect of the future: the student or the master, the wolf or the dragon. Jon does not raise his voice. That is what settles it. He simply states that the North will be free, that the alliance is made, that the matter is closed. He speaks with the flat certainty of a man who has already decided, and there is nothing left for Daemon to do but accept it publicly or shatter the whole enterprise in front of the assembled lords. Daemon accepts it. He bows his head, the barest inclination, and he smiles. And the smile is the most dangerous thing in the field that day. Because a lesser man would have raged, Daemon recalculates. He watches the boy he made step past him into a kind of authority that no longer requires his permission, and instead of fury, he feels something colder and more patient settle into him. The game is not over. The board has simply changed. And Daemon Targaryen has always been at his most lethal in the moment, just after he appears to have lost. He begins, quietly, to plan for a version of the war in which Jon does not need him at all, and what such a version would require him to become. What happens when a dragon meets an army that has prepared for it? The answer, in the golden fields of the Reach, is that the preparation does not matter. The Lannister and Tyrell host had drawn up in good order, pikes bristling, archers ranked behind them, cavalry held in reserve on the flanks where the ground rose gently toward a line of low hills. They had studied the reports from the Riverlands. They had spread their formations wide so that no single pass of fire could consume too many men at once. They had done everything a competent commander does when he knows a dragon is coming. And it did not matter, because Daemon Targaryen did not send the dragon at the men. He sent it at the wagons. Consider the logic of it. Cold and clean as winter water, an army in the field is not the swords in its hands. An army is bread. An army is barrels of salted pork and sacks of grain and casks of water hauled behind it in a long, vulnerable tail that no formation can protect, because the tail must move along roads, and roads cannot be widened, and fire falls faster than oxen walk. Vermax came out of the morning haze low and fast, and Jon on his back did not turn toward the shining ranks of the enemy at all. He turned toward the supply train winding through the hills behind them, and Vermax opened his jaws, and the harvest of the Reach became a river of flame. The battle was decided before it was fought. A host that cannot eat cannot hold a line for a week, and both commanders knew it. And so the Tyrell center bent and then broke, and the retreat began. It was in that retreat that the first fracture appeared, not between the armies, but within the one that was winning. A column of Lannister foot, perhaps 2,000 men, found themselves cut off along a narrow road between two burning fields. They could not go forward, they could not go back, and so they did what trapped men do when death is certain. They threw down their spears and raised their hands. Daemon saw it from the ridge. Daemon understood, with the instant arithmetic of a man who has spent his life measuring the cost of mercy, that 2,000 surrendered soldiers are 2,000 men who will fight again if released, and 2,000 corpses if they are not. He gave the order. He told Jon to burn them. Jon refused. He did not argue. He did not lecture. He simply banked Vermax away from the road and let the column live. And when he landed beside Daemon, he said only that the North does not burn men who have laid down their swords. Daemon looked at him for a long moment, and something in that look was not anger, it was assessment, because Daemon had just learned something worth more than 2,000 men. He had learned the precise location of the boy's edge, the line past which the dragon would not go, and a man who knows where the wall is can build his plans against it. Far to the south, in a solar in a captured keep, another man was learning the same lesson from the same event and drawing a colder conclusion. Tywin Lannister does not fear the dragon. This is the thing that must be understood about him. He has spent his life around powerful weapons, and he knows that a weapon is only as dangerous as the hand that wields it, and a hand that will not close all the way is a hand that can be predicted. What Tywin fears is honor. Honor is unpredictable. Honor makes men refuse advantages, and a man who refuses advantages is a man whose behavior cannot be modeled, and a man who cannot be modeled cannot be beaten by planning. Jon Snow's mercy on that road did not reassure Tywin. It terrified him, because it told him that the boy was building something the sword alone could not. Legitimacy, loyalty, the willingness of ordinary men to die for a name. So Tywin did not sue for peace. Tywin does not sue for peace when he can instead sue for division. He wrote to Daemon. The letter was a small thing, carried by a single rider under no banner, and it said nothing that could be quoted as treason. It spoke of respect between men who had lived long enough to understand the world. It observed, gently, that the young were passionate and the old were wise. It asked, without asking, a single question dressed in 100 courtesies. Does the prince who conquered still wish to conquer, or has he made himself a servant to the boy he raised? Tywin did not expect Daemon to defect. Tywin expected only to place a stone in a shoe, a splinter under a nail, a question that could not be unasked. He was probing for the seam in the alliance, and he had chosen his target perfectly, because the seam ran exactly through the space between the man and the boy. Daemon read the letter. Daemon did not burn it, and that was the mistake. Or perhaps it was not a mistake at all, but the first move of his own reply, a delay dressed as consideration. Jon found it 3 days later. He found it because he had begun, quietly, to place his own men close to Daemon's tent, Northmen who reported to him and to no one else, a small precaution born from a field in the Riverlands where he had learned that Daemon's smile was most dangerous after a loss. One of them saw the unbannered rider, one of them saw the parchment, and Jon walked into the tent with the letter in his hand and asked Daemon what it meant. Daemon did not lie. That was the terrible part. He looked at the boy he had raised, and he said, simply, that he had been buying time, that he had answered nothing, that a wise man keeps every door ajar until he knows which room holds the throne. He said it as though it were obvious, as though it were kindness. Jon left the tent without a word, and that night, for the first time, he summoned men to a council of his own. Men who owed nothing to Daemon Targaryen, men chosen because they had never once smiled after losing. He did not know yet what he would build with them. He knew only that he could no longer share a war with a man who had answered Tywin Lannister with silence instead of fire. What does a city cost? Not in coin, though coin is the easiest figure to reckon, but in the slower currency, the one paid out over years, the loyalty of the living and the memory of the dead. This is the question that hangs over the walls of the Lannister city as the Golden Company breaks them, and it is a question Jon has not yet learned to price. The siege runs for 11 days. On the 12th, the wall falls, and the answer arrives all at once. He gave an order before the assault. It was a simple order, delivered in plain words, so that no captain could later claim he had misheard the meaning through the fog of battle. Take the city. Spare those who yield. Any man who lifts a blade against one who has already dropped his own will answer to me. The captains nodded. The captains understood. And the captains, when the gates gave way and the streets opened before them like veins beneath a knife, did precisely what sellswords have always done with a conquered city, which is to take from it everything a man can carry and burn what he cannot. Jon rides in at dusk. He sees the smoke first, then the bodies, then the faces of those who survived, pressed into doorways, watching him come with the flat, hollow stare of people who have already decided he is no different from the last man who claimed to be their liberator. He does not shout. That is the detail the survivors will remember. He does not rage or weep. He summons the 3 captains who led the assault, and he asks them one question, and the question is whether they heard his order. They did. They admit it plainly, because to them, the order was a courtesy, a thing said for the record and never meant to bind. A city is a soldier's wage. Everyone knows this, everyone but the boy who now stands before them with a face like the northern sea in winter. He has them beheaded in the square where the worst of it happened. Understand the mathematics of that moment. 3 captains of the Golden Company command, between them, something near 4,000 blades, Their men watch the execution, and they do not see justice. They see a paymaster who kills the ones who fought his hardest fight. Word travels through the camp before the heads have cooled. By morning, a fifth of Jon's sellsword strength regards him as a liability, a commander who will spend their lives freely and then punish them for the manner of the spending. This is not a small thing. This is the beginning of a wound. And yet, the conquered watch too. They see a Targaryen kill his own men for the crime of harming them, and something shifts in the arithmetic that Tywin Lannister has spent a lifetime perfecting. Fear buys obedience. It does not buy love. Jon has just purchased something Tywin cannot counterfeit, and he has paid for it with the loyalty of soldiers he cannot easily replace. Daemon comes to him that night. Of course he does. He does not begin with anger. Daemon never begins with anger. Anger is a card played late, when subtler cards have failed. He begins with the reckoning, laid out cold and clean, the way a man lays out the flaw in a plan he has watched proceed toward ruin. A king, Daemon tells him, cannot afford to be loved by peasants and hated by his own steel. Peasants do not hold spears at your back in the melee. Peasants do not decide, in the gray hour before a battle, whether the man beside them lives or dies. You have made yourself beloved in a city that will forget you within a season, and you have made yourself despised in the only army you possess. Jon says he gave an order. Daemon says orders are instruments, not scripture. A wise commander gives the orders his men can obey and keeps the rest inside his own skull, where they cost nothing. And here the rift opens fully, the crack that has been widening since the field in the Riverlands, since the unbannered rider, since the letter Daemon answered with silence. Jon looks at the man who raised him and understands, at last, that they are not fighting the same war. Daemon is fighting for a throne. Jon has begun, somewhere in the smoke of that ruined city, to fight for a reason to sit upon it. These are not the same thing. They were never the same thing. Jon simply had not yet found the place where the two roads part. He does not shout at Daemon either. He has learned that from him, if nothing else. He says only that he will fight this war on his own terms, and if those terms cost him captains, and cost him ground, and cost him the swift victory Daemon craves, then he will pay it, because a crown taken the way Tywin would take it is a crown he does not want. Daemon leaves the tent. He does not slam the flap. That too is a kind of message. But Jon is not finished. This is the part Daemon does not yet see. The move made while the older man broods over a rift he believes to be mere sentiment. Jon summons scribes. Through the night he composes letters, and the letters go out in the morning under his own seal, not the Golden Company's, not Daemon's, his own. They travel to every lord who fights for Casterly Rock out of fear rather than love, which is to say, nearly all of them. The offer is simple. Abandon Tywin and keep your lands, your titles, your heads. No sacking, no reprisal. Amnesty, plainly given, from the one commander in the realm who has just proven, with 3 heads in a square, that his word is worth the blood it is written in. The genius of it is that the sack made the offer credible. Tywin cannot match it, because Tywin's power rests on the certainty that betrayal is answered with fire. The first raven flies at dawn, and in a solar at Casterly Rock, days from now, an old man will read a name he did not expect to lose. What if a man who spent his whole life steering others discovered, too late, that the boy he raised had learned to steer himself? This is the shape of Daemon Targaryen's fear in the weeks that follow, though he would never name it aloud, not even in the private dark of his own tent. He watches the letters go out. He watches the Lord's answer. He watches Jon's name grow heavier in the mouths of men who once spoke only of the rogue prince and his golden mercenaries. And something in Daemon curdles. Not jealousy, he tells himself. Never so small a thing as jealousy. It is concern. It is prudence. A blade that will not answer the hand must be reforged or discarded. And Daemon has never in his life discarded a blade he could still swing. So he begins to think about the eggs. There are 3 of them still, wrapped in oilcloth and kept in a locked chest that travels always in Jon's baggage. Relics carried out of the ruin of Old Valyria and traded through a dozen hands before they came into the boy's keeping. 3 eggs that have not stirred, not warmed, not cracked. Jon has never tried to hatch them. He treats them as history, as inheritance, as things too sacred to gamble. Daemon treats them differently. Daemon looks at them and sees a throne he does not sit upon, a fire he does not command, a weapon aimed by another man's arm. And what if, he asks himself in the small hours, the eggs were never meant for Jon at all? What if they were waiting, all this time, for a rider who understood what dragons are truly for? He takes them in the night. Not all 3. 2. He leaves 1. Because a missing egg is a theft, but a missing chest is a war. And Daemon still calculates, even as ambition eats through his caution like acid through iron. He rides out with a handful of men sworn to him alone, men from the old company who remember when Daemon Targaryen was the only Targaryen worth the name. He finds a place where the earth still breathes heat, an old volcanic vent in the Westerland hills, and there he builds his pyre. He has read the accounts. He has read every account. Blood and fire, sacrifice and song, the old words in the old tongue that his kind spoke when dragons filled the sky like storms. He believes, as clever men so often fatally believe, that knowledge is the same as worthiness, that understanding the mechanism grants him the right to work it. The fire climbs. The heat becomes a living thing, a pressure against the skin, a roar without a voice. Daemon speaks the words. He cuts his palm and lets the blood fall hissing into the flames. He waits for the shells to darken, to soften, to split along the seams, and release the thing coiled inside. Nothing splits but Daemon's own certainty. The eggs remain stone. The fire, unfed by any hatching, turns instead upon the man who lit it. A gout of trapped gas erupts from the vent below. The flames leap, seize his cloak, race up his arm, and for one white moment, Daemon Targaryen learns what his own dragon dreams were worth. His men drag him from the pyre half-burned, screaming, the left side of his face and neck seared to raw meat, his hand a ruin. The eggs he carries out are cold. They were always cold. They were never his. Word travels faster than a wounded man can ride. By the time Daemon is carried back into the camp, wrapped in salve-soaked linen, Jon already knows. He knows because the chest was opened. He knows because a man cannot hide 2 missing eggs and a burned body and a night of absence all at once. He comes to the tent alone. He sends the maester out. He looks down at the ruined figure on the cot, and the silence between them is the longest Daemon has ever endured. "You would have ridden past me," Jon says at last. Not a question. Daemon's answer comes through cracked lips, and here, at the edge of death, he does the one thing he has never done. He tells the truth. "You were never my son." The words are quiet, almost gentle, and that is what makes them terrible. You were a claim with a face, a legacy that could walk and speak, and carry my ambition further than my own legs could carry it. I loved what you could be. I loved the throne you were shaped to sit. I never once loved the boy." Jon does not flinch. Jon has known this, somewhere beneath knowing, for years. But hearing it spoken aloud is a different kind of wound, and it opens cleanly, and it bleeds. "Then you have lost twice," Jon says. "The dragon would not have you, and neither will I." What comes next is the decision that men will argue over for 100 years, the moment a foster son becomes a king in truth. Jon strips Daemon of every command, every seal, every soldier who answers to him. The Golden Company will take its orders from Jon alone now, and those who prefer Daemon may follow their burned prince into whatever future a landless exile can offer. But Jon does not kill him. He could. The camp expects it. Justice demands it. Half his captains would nod and call it mercy to the realm. He does not do it. "You raised me," Jon says, and his voice does not break, though something behind his eyes clearly does. "You lied in every hour of it, but you fed me, and you taught me, and you made me what I am, and I cannot pretend those years away because they end in this tent. So you will live, under guard, in a keep of my choosing, far from armies and eggs and thrones. You will grow old where you can harm no one." He turns to go. At the flap he pauses, not looking back. "That is the last thing I will ever give you." And in a solar at Casterly Rock, another old man is still reading names he did not expect to lose. What if the war a man thinks he is fighting is not the war that will decide whether he lives or dies? Jon has spent his campaign learning the shape of the game the great houses play, and he has grown good at it, better perhaps than the father who taught him. He knows how to read a rival's silence. He knows how to weigh a marriage against a march, a granary against a grievance. He has bent the West to his will and left the crownlands calculating whether opposition is worth the ash it would cost them. And in the quiet after victory, when a lesser man might have turned inward to count his gains, a raven comes down out of a gray sky and lands in the mud of his consolidation, like a stone dropped into still water. The letter is short. The hand is unsteady. It comes from the Black Brothers of the Watch, and it does not speak the careful language of southern lords. It speaks of the dead that walk. It speaks of blue eyes in the dark beyond the wall, and rangers who did not return, and of one who did return, and who rose again with his throat opened, and murder in his cold hands. Daemon reads it over Jon's shoulder and laughs, not cruelly, but with the easy certainty of a man who has spent his life among schemers, and knows that fear is a currency like any other. "Crows," he says, "want gold and men and attention, and they will invent monsters to get all three. Burn it. Answer none of it. The North is a distraction the South cannot afford." He does not finish the thought aloud, because he no longer commands here, and the silence that follows his advice is its own kind of demotion. But Jon does not burn it. Jon holds the parchment and feels something colder than politics move through him, and the coldness has a source he cannot fully name. He was raised on Old Nan's tales without ever hearing Old Nan tell them, raised on them through blood, through the memory that lives in Stark bones, through dreams of a white wood and a red-leaved tree and a wind that carries the smell of snow that should not be there. He has never named himself a Stark. He has never dared, and yet the North answers something in him that the Iron Throne never has. And when the letter speaks of the dead rising, some old warden's instinct beneath the Targaryen fire whispers that this is not a lie told for gold. This is the thing the tales were always about. This is why the wall was built. The War Council does not agree, and the War Council is not wrong to object. They lay it out for him with the patience owed to a young king who has not yet lost enough to know better. He has half the realm still to win. Storm's End watches. Highgarden waits. Dorne calculates. Every day he lingers. His enemies breathe. And every soldier he sends north is a soldier not standing between him and the men who would gladly see him dead. To divert his strength for a crow's ghost story is to gamble the throne on a nursery rhyme. They are right about the risk. They are right about the arithmetic. Jon listens to all of it, and then he does the thing that will define him more than any battle. He decides that some threats cannot be answered by arithmetic at all. He sends men north. Not all. He is not a fool, but enough that his southern captains feel the absence like a missing tooth. Grain wagons turn onto the King's Road. Ravens carry his word to the watch that help is coming, and that the king believes them. And then, against every counsel, against Daemon's caged fury and his own advisor's open dread, he decides he must see it himself. A king who sends others to die on the strength of a story he only half believes is no king at all. He will not spend lives on faith. He will spend them on knowledge, and knowledge means going to the edge of the world and looking past it with his own eyes. Vermax carries him north over a landscape that empties as it climbs. The green of the riverlands gives way to gray, and the gray gives way to white. And the wall rises at last out of the horizon, like something the world dreamed rather than built. He does not linger among the Black Brothers longer than he must. He listens. He looks into the faces of men who have seen what they cannot unsee, and he finds no gold hunger there, only exhaustion, and the particular stillness of people waiting to die. Then he mounts again, and the dragon lifts him over that impossible height, and for the first time in his life, Jon Snow flies into the true north, where no southern game has ever reached, and no lord has ever held a seat worth killing for. He finds them in the failing light. Not rumor, not tale, figures moving across the snow with a wrongness that stops the breath, ranked in a silence more terrible than any war cry, and behind them, drawn upward on cold currents of air, something turns its pale face toward the sky and toward him. The dead do not fear the dragon. That is the detail that will haunt him. Fire falls and the snow drinks it, and still they come. And the cold that rises from the earth is a living thing that reaches even into the heat of Vermax's blood, so that the great beast screams and climbs faster than Jon has ever asked of him. He barely escapes. He knows he barely escapes. And he knows, too, that what he has seen has reorganized every ambition he carried north with him. He does not remember the flight back. He remembers only the moment the wall passed beneath him again, and the Black Brothers looked up at his face and understood, without a word, that their king had seen. And in the cold beyond that ice, the ranks that watched him flee begin, patiently, to move south. What if a man who had spent his entire life fighting for a lie discovered, in the final hour, that the truth had been waiting behind him all along? The raven that reached Jon at Castle Black carried no comfort. It carried arithmetic. Tywin Lannister, patient as stone and twice as unmoved, had watched the young Targaryen king turn his gaze north and had drawn the only conclusion a man of his temperament could draw. Absence is opportunity. A crown that looks over one shoulder cannot guard the other. And so while Jon stood at the edge of the world learning that fire did not frighten the dead, the old lion had emptied the Westerlands of every sword still capable of holding a formation, gathered the last loyal remnants of the Reach and the Crownlands to his banners, and marched them toward King's Landing with the grim economy of a man who understands that this is his final wager and intends to place it whole. Jon reads the letter twice. Then he burns it, because there is nothing in it he needs to keep. The southward flight is a different journey than the one that brought him north. He does not remember the going. He remembers only the returning, and the way each league of thawing land seems to accuse him of the thing he cannot yet say aloud. He has seen the enemy that makes all thrones equal, and now he must ride toward men who will not believe it, to ask them to fear something they cannot see in order to defeat something they can. This is the impossible arithmetic of his position. He must win the war in front of him, without forgetting the war behind him, and he must do both while carrying a knowledge that would break the resolve of any lord he tried to share it with. So he does not share it, not yet. He gathers his fractured host in the ruins of a war half won, and the lords who come to him come suspicious, come wary, come measuring the boy against the legend, and finding the legend wanting. They have heard he flew to the wall on a whim. They have heard he abandoned the field for ghosts and old wives' tales. Jon does not argue with them. He has learned, from a man now dead, that argument is the weapon of those who lack the power to command. He tells them only this, that Tywin Lannister marches on the capital, that a starving city waits behind those walls, and that whoever holds King's Landing when the dust settles will hold the realm. It is a truth they can touch. It is enough. The battle comes before the walls of the city itself, on ground that Jon chooses with the cold care of the father who raised him. He remembers Daemon's teaching the way other men remember prayers. Never fight where the enemy wishes. Never spend the dragon on the first hour when the last hour will decide everything. Hold, hold. Let them commit, let them believe, and then break them when belief has become momentum and momentum has become a trap. Tywin's host is a beautiful thing, in the way that all doomed, disciplined things are beautiful. It advances in ranks that do not waver, shields locked, spears bristling, the mailed fist of a man who has never in his life mistaken sentiment for strategy. And for a time it works. The lines meet and grind, and Jon's fractured lords buckle where he expects them to buckle, and the old lion presses into the gap with everything he has, because he too knows this is the final wager, and a man does not hold coin back from a bet he cannot afford to lose. Then Vermax comes, not from the front, where they watch for him, from the flank, low and fast along the river, so that the first the Lannister host knows of the dragon is the shadow that swallows their rear ranks and the heat that follows it. Jon does not burn the city. He does not burn the field entire. He burns the reserve, the supply, the bridge of retreat, and he does it with a precision that is itself a message. I could have made ash of all of you, and I chose not to. The line does not break because it is beaten. It breaks because it understands. And an army that understands it has lost, stops being an army, and becomes, in the space of 100 heartbeats, a fleeing crowd of frightened men. They bring Tywin to Jon amid the wreckage of his ambition. The old man is not bound. There is no need to bind him. He stands with his hands loose at his sides, and his eyes as flat and pale as winter water, and he looks upon the son of Rhaegar Targaryen with an expression Jon will spend years trying to name. It is not fear. It is not even hatred. It is the look of a man watching the final proof that everything he built his life upon was sand. Jon offers him what Daemon would never have offered. He offers him a knee. Bend, he says. Live, serve. The realm has need of men who understand it, and I would rather have your mind at my table than your name upon a pyre. Tywin Lannister smiles then, and it is a terrible thing to see. He spent his years destroying dragons so that lions might rule the world. To kneel now would be to name that whole life a folly, and there are men who would rather die whole than live diminished by a single degree. He does not answer with words. He answers with a small blade that no one thought to take from him, drawn quick and turned inward before the nearest guard can close the distance. And he sinks to the ruined earth by his own choice and no others, a lion who would not be caged, dying at the feet of the very restoration he had bled the realm to prevent. Jon looks down at the body for a long moment. Behind him, the gates of King's Landing are opening, and the starving are already beginning to come out to meet him. What if a conqueror, having taken a throne by fire and blood, chose in the very hour of his triumph to give away the greatest portion of his power? It is a question that has no precedent in the long history of Westeros, and it is the question Jon Snow now sets before the realm. He does not summon his lords to bend the knee. He summons them to decide. A great council. The words carry weight, for they have been spoken only a handful of times across 3 centuries, and always when the succession was in doubt, when the dragonlords themselves could not settle their own house without appeal to the greater body of the realm. Jon invokes that precedent deliberately. He wants the lords to feel the ground shift beneath them, to understand that what is being asked of them is not obedience but participation. A king who takes power alone owns every consequence of it alone. A king who is chosen shares the burden of his choosing with every hand that raised him up. They come to Harrenhal because Harrenhal is a ruin, and a ruin makes a fitting hall for a conversation about the death of one order and the birth of another. Beneath the melted towers, under a sky the color of cold iron, the great houses gather, the Tyrells, who bent early and wish to be seen to have bent for principle rather than fear, the Martells, who came for vengeance and stayed for something they did not expect to find, the Riverlords, the Stormlords, the exhausted remnants of the Crownlands, and in their midst, wearing no chains but watched by every eye, Daemon Targaryen, released from his confinement to attend the council he did not call and cannot control. Jon rises to speak, and he does not speak of himself. He speaks of the North. He tells them what he promised Robb Stark upon a windswept height in another lifetime, and he tells them he means to keep it. The North shall govern the North. Its lords shall answer to a warden of their own choosing. Its taxes shall serve its own needs first. Its faith shall remain its own. It shall be bound to the Iron Throne, not by a fist, but by a compact, a confederation of realms that share a crown without surrendering their souls to it. He offers the same terms, in lesser measure, to Dorne and to the Reach and to any kingdom that asks. He is dismantling the very engine of absolute rule that the conqueror built, and he is doing it in the open, before witnesses, so that no man can later claim it was done in weakness or in secret. The lords do not understand at first. A king does not give power away. Power flows towards strength as water flows downhill. This is the oldest law they know. Yet here is a man who has strength, who has dragons, who has broken every army raised against him, and he is saying that a crown which must be held by force is a crown already lost. Watch the calculation move through the hall. Watch the northern lords realize they are being handed the thing they fought and bled and died for, freely, by the son of the man who once threatened it. Watch the stormlords realize that a king, willing to bind his own hands, is a king they need not fear at their backs. A ruler who limits himself is more trusted than one who does not, and trust, in the end, is the only foundation that does not crumble. Then Daemon speaks. He is old now, in the way that ambition makes men old, and he speaks with the cold brilliance that has served him across a lifetime of scheming. He tells them the realm cannot survive divided. He tells them that Aegon's great work was the welding of 7 quarreling kingdoms into one body, and that to unweld it is to invite the old wars back, brother against brother, harvest burned, salt sown in the fields. He is not wrong. That is what makes him dangerous. Every word he says has been true at some point in the history he has studied so long. He is arguing for the world he built Jon to inherit, and he is arguing for it well. But the lords have heard him now. They have seen where his logic leads, because they have lived inside it, and they are tired. Tired of dragons overhead, tired of thrones bought with rivers of the small folk's blood, tired of a unity that felt like a boot upon the neck. When Jon answers, he does not refute the old man point by point. He simply asks a question. He asks whether a realm held together only by the fear of a single family's fire was ever truly one realm at all, or merely a prison with a very large door. He lets the silence answer. The lords answer with their silence too, and their silence is a verdict. Daemon sees it. Of course he sees it. He has spent his whole life reading rooms. He sees the moment his last bid for influence dies, not to a sword, but to indifference, to the slow turning away of men who have chosen a different future than the one he offered. He sits. He does not finish his argument. He does not need to. It is finished for him. And then Jon does the thing that no advisor counseled and no strategy required. He tells them who he is. Not the bastard of Winterfell, not the fostered ward of a Targaryen exile, but the true-born son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, born of a marriage the realm was never told of, hidden his whole life behind a lie that a dying woman begged a grieving man to keep. He lays the truth of his blood upon the melted table for all of them to weigh, and having claimed the throne by that blood, he tells them what he means to do with it. Not conquest, not the reclaiming of the free cities, not the crossing of the narrow sea, not the endless hunger of dragons for more. Something is coming from beyond the wall, he says, and it does not care whose banner flies above King's Landing. His reign will be spent preparing for it. The hall goes very still. In the far corner, a raven begins to scream. What if the hardest war a king ever fights is not against the enemy, but against the men who are supposed to follow him? Jon learns this truth in the months that follow, and he learns it slowly, the way a man learns the depth of a river by wading deeper into it with every step. The lords who knelt in the melted hall did not kneel to a cause. They knelt to a dragon, and to a bloodline, and to the exhaustion of a realm that had bled itself thin. Belief is a different thing entirely. Belief must be built, and so he sets about building it the way Daemon taught him long ago, in the years before either of them imagined this ending. Not with speeches, but with position. Consider the problem as he considers it, spread across a table like pieces waiting to be moved. He has a throne and no army worth the name. He has a threat that no living man south of the neck has seen with his own eyes. He has lords who fear the dead less than they fear each other, and free folk who fear nothing at all except being penned behind a wall while something worse waits on the other side. Each of these is a weakness. Each of them, if turned correctly, becomes a strength. This is the calculation that occupies him through the long gray autumn as the light thins and the ravens come more often, bearing worse and worse news from the north. He begins with the thing they cannot argue with, dragonglass. He empties dragonstone of it, sends miners into the Black Cliffs, has it shipped in crates and carried in wagons, and stacked in the vaults of every holdfast that will take it. A lord may doubt an omen. A lord cannot doubt the weight of a crate in his own cellar. And every crate is a small debt owed, a thread pulled tight between the crown and the man who accepts it, so that when the reckoning comes, they will find themselves already committed, already invested, already standing on the king's side of the line before they understood a line had been drawn. Then the wildlings. This is the hardest piece, and he knows it, and he moves it anyway. The northern lords have hated the free folk for 1,000 years, hated them across the wall, with the pure and patient hatred that only long borders breed. Jon brings them south. He does it against every council, Tormund at his side, and the Thenns, and the spearwives, and the giants who make the horses scream, and the northern lords look upon this host of ancient enemies and see betrayal walking through their gates. Jon does not argue with them. He simply asks a single question, and he asks it of each lord in turn, in private, in the tactical quiet of a solar with the door closed. Would you rather they died beyond the wall and rose again as soldiers of the enemy? He does not finish the thought. He does not need to. Every man who has heard the reports understands that the dead do not stay dead, and that every free folk corpse left north of the wall is a spear that will one day be pointed south. It is not friendship he offers them, it is arithmetic. And arithmetic, unlike friendship, does not require love to compel obedience. And then there is Daemon. The old prince comes to him unbidden, which is itself a kind of statement, because Daemon Targaryen has spent his long life going where he was not sent and taking what he was not given. He is gray now in a way he was not before, the fire in him banked low, the swagger gone quiet. He does not ask for the vanguard. He offers it. He offers to ride at the front of the host, to be the first blade that meets the dead. And Jon understands the offer for what it is, because he was raised by this man and knows the shape of his hungers. It is not glory Daemon wants, or not only glory. It is an ending that means something, a death that pays a debt he has never been able to name. The boy he raised became a king, and the king he made no longer needs him, and a man like Daemon cannot live long in a world that has no use for him. Better to be spent, better to be the point of the spear than the ornament on the mantle. Jon looks at him across the table and does not speak for a long moment. There is so much between them. The lie of his birth that Daemon knew and never told. The years of hard love and harder lessons. The moments where he could not tell whether the old man was raising him or shaping a weapon. And now the weapon is asking to be used, and Jon must decide whether to grant it. He grants it. He names Daemon commander of the vanguard, and in the naming, there is something that is almost forgiveness and almost gratitude and almost grief. All of it unspoken, all of it understood, because they have never been men who needed words to know each other's minds. Daemon inclines his head. That is all. That is enough. Then the horn sounds. It comes down the length of the world, passed from watcher to watcher, from the wall to the mountains, to the raven's wings, 3 long blasts that mean the thing every man had prayed was only story. The wall is breached, the dead are through. Whatever bound that ice for 8,000 years has failed, and the cold is pouring south like a tide that will not turn. Jon stands in the yard as the news arrives, and feels the whole calculation collapse into a single moving front. All his careful pieces now committed. No more time to build belief, only time to test it. Starks and Lannister remnants. The Golden Company sellswords and the free folk who were their enemies. A dragon in the gray sky, and an old prince at the point of the spear. The long night has begun, and Jon Snow rides north to meet it. What does a rogue do when the game he spent his whole life playing finally offers him a board with no winners, only survivors? Daemon Targaryen had asked himself that question in the long dark hours before the dead came, and he had answered it the way he answered every hard reckoning, which was to say he had not answered it at all, only sharpened his sword and drunk his wine and let the morning decide. Now the morning had come, though there was no light in it, and the answer was simpler than he had feared. He rides to the breach. The breach is a wound in the line, where the whites have poured through the shattered stone of an old holdfast, spilling into the killing ground behind the first rank, and if it is not sealed, the entire eastern flank folds inward like wet parchment. Daemon sees this the way he has always seen a battlefield, as a set of moving weights, each pressure demanding a counterpressure, each gap a debt that must be paid in men. He knows the arithmetic. He has always known the arithmetic. What has changed is that for the first time in a life spent hoarding his own survival, he is willing to pay the debt himself. The Golden Company forms up around him, sellswords who fight for coin and legacy and the memory of a homeland long lost, and they do not run, because Daemon does not run, and men take their courage from the man at the point of the spear, the way iron takes an edge from the stone. He plants himself in the gap. The dead come in a gray flood, unhurried, tireless, and Daemon meets them with a swordsman's economy. No wasted motion, each stroke a sentence completed, and the sellswords hold the line at his shoulders, because a prince who has outlived 3 kings and countless enemies has decided that this frozen nothing of a courtyard is where he will make his stand. He is buying time. That is the whole of it. Every heartbeat the breach stays sealed is a heartbeat Jon can use, and Daemon has done the sum and knows the ledger will close against him. He does not mind. This surprises him, distantly, the way a man is surprised to find a room he thought empty has been furnished all along. He had raised a boy who was not his blood into a king who was not his puppet, and somewhere in that raising he had misplaced the part of himself that only ever fought for Daemon. He does not miss it. The cold takes him slowly, and then all at once. A white's blade finds the seam beneath his arm, and another the back of his knee, and the tide that he has held so long finally passes over him, and Daemon Targaryen goes down in the churned red snow, with his sword still in his hand, and something on his face that the men who see it will later swear was a smile. He is thinking of the boy on the training yard who never quite believed he deserved the sword he was given. He is thinking that the boy became a king, and that this, of all the schemes and betrayals of a scheming life, is the one that will outlast him. The breach holds a moment longer for his dying. It is enough. Above him, Jon feels the flank steady without knowing why, and he does not have the luxury to wonder, because the sky itself has turned against him. The Night King rides the fallen dragon now, blue fire pouring down where once there was flame, and Jon on Vermax climbs into the storm to meet him. There is no cunning left to spend. This is the part of the war that no council chamber prepared him for, the part that belongs not to the Targaryen who taught him strategy, but to the Stark blood that taught him what a man owes the living. Vermax and the dead dragon collide in the dark, teeth and claw and screaming wind, and when Vermax falls, Jon falls with him, thrown clear onto the ice, with the breath torn out of his body, and the Night King landing before him with all the patience of a thing that has waited 8,000 years. The Valyrian steel is in his hand. He does not remember drawing it. The Night King's eyes are the blue of the deep places under old ice, and in them, Jon sees no malice, only the vast indifference of winter itself, and he understands that this is what Daemon meant all those years ago when he said the world does not care what you deserve, only what you are willing to spend. Jon spends everything. The blow costs him his balance and his blood, and very nearly his life, but the blade goes home, and the great enemy shatters like a lake breaking in a thaw, and the cold that was pouring south finds nothing left to command. The whites fall where they stand, 10,000 of them and more, collapsing into the bones and rags they had always been, and the silence that follows is the loudest thing Jon has ever heard. Dawn comes over Winterfell as it has come every morning since the world began, indifferent to the price of the night, and it finds Jon kneeling in the ruin of the field with his dragon's cooling body behind him and the whole survived world before him. He finds Daemon among the dead near the breach. He kneels there too, for a long time, and he does not weep, because the man who taught him would have thought weeping a waste of water, and because grief this large has no shape small enough for tears. He closes the old prince's eyes. He takes the sword from the frozen hand, and then the harder question arrives, the one no horn announces, the one that has waited behind the war, the way the war waited behind the peace. He is a king. The enemy that made him a king is gone. The lords who followed him into the dark are looking at him now across the reddened snow, and they are wondering what he is for. And Jon, rising with 2 swords and no war left to fight them with, finds that he is wondering the same thing. What is a king for when the war that made him is finished? The question follows Jon through the melting of the snows, through the counting of the dead, through the long, slow labor of rebuilding a realm that had forgotten what peace felt like in its bones. And the answer he arrives at is not the answer Daemon would have given. Daemon believed a king was for conquest, for the enlargement of a name, for the pressing of a will upon the world, until the world took its shape. Jon considers this belief carefully, the way a man turns a coin to study both faces, and he sets it down. He does not smash it. He does not curse it. He simply sets it down, the way one sets down a sword when the killing is done. The lords come to Winterfell that spring, and they come expecting a coronation. They come expecting the old ceremony, the old submission, the bending of many knees before one seat. What they find instead is a table. A long table, round as the moon, with no head and no foot, and Jon, standing among the chairs rather than above them, he tells them plainly what he intends. The kingdoms that fought together will govern together. The North will keep its own laws. The Iron Islands will keep their salt and their strangeness. Dorne will keep its heat, the Reach its harvests, the Vale its high, cold pride. Each will send its voice to the council, and no single voice will drown the others, and the throne that Aegon forged from the swords of the conquered will be forged again into something else entirely. They melt it. They gather the blades that made the Iron Throne, 1,000 surrendered swords fused by dragonfire into a monument of tyranny, and they feed them back into the flame. Jon watches the metal soften. He watches the cruel points sag and run. And when the pouring is done, what emerges is not a seed at all, but a great ring, a plain circle of dark iron, large enough for many hands to rest upon, set at the center of the council table, so that every lord who deliberates the fate of the realm must reach toward the same center and touch the same cooled fire. The symbol is deliberate. Jon chose it the way Daemon would have chosen a battle line, with an understanding that men are moved by what they can see and touch, that a story told in iron outlasts a story told in words. He learned that from the dragon. He is using it against everything the dragon wanted. There is a rite for the dead of Old Valyria, half remembered, half invented, and Jon performs it for Daemon on the shore of the Sunset Sea, where the old prince once told him that the world belonged to those bold enough to take it. He speaks the words in a tongue that tastes of ash. He gives the body to the fire, and the fire to the water, and above the place he raises a monument of black stone carved with two lines that seem to contradict each other and do not. Here lies Daemon of the house Targaryen, it reads, who made a king and unmade a peace, my maker and my adversary. The stonemasons asked him whether he was certain, whether a man could be honestly named, both the father of a king and the enemy of that king's every deepest belief. Jon told them he was certain. He told them that the two halves had lived inside him his whole life, the fire and the honor, the ambition that Daemon poured into him, and the duty that the wolf blood of the north had quietly kept, and that only now, with the old prince cold and the realm remade, could he hold both halves at once without either one devouring the other. He could have kept the power. This is the truth that the maesters will argue over for centuries. He held the last true dragon in his heart and the loyalty of every lord who survived the long night, and had he wished to seat himself upon a new throne and rule as absolutely as any Targaryen before him, not one blade in Westeros would have risen against him. Daemon had spent a lifetime laboring to restore exactly that, the singular crown, the unchallenged word, the old dream of the dragon uncontested. It lay within Jon's grasp the way a ripe fruit lies within reach of the hand. And Jon, who understood precisely what he was refusing, refused it. He chose to be the guardian of the shared thing rather than the master of the single thing. He chose to be the wolf who watches rather than the dragon who rules. He rides north one final time when the council is settled and the confederation holds, and the letters carrying its terms have gone out to every keep and holdfast in the realm. He rides alone for the last stretch, past the barrows and the old gray standing stones, up the King's Road where the snows are finally retreating, and somewhere along that road, the understanding settles over him with the quiet weight of snow itself. A dragon raised him. A dragon taught him war and ambition and the ruthless mathematics of power, filled him with fire, forged him into a weapon fit to break the coldest enemy the world had ever faced. But it was not the fire that saved Westeros in the end. It was the restraint. It was the setting down of the sword. It was the wolf inside him, the northern thing, the part that had always believed a lord should serve the land beneath his feet rather than devour it, that had finally reached out and gently taken the reins from the dragon's hands. Fire had won the war. Honor had won the peace. And Jon, riding through the thawing country, with both his fathers now behind him and a world remade before him, understood at last that he had never been forced to choose between them, because the truest strength had always lived in the holding of both, in perfect and lasting balance, beneath the quiet, indifferent dawn. And with that, we finally reached the end of this alternate timeline, and I'd love to hear what you think. Did you enjoy the direction this story took? Was there a moment that surprised you the most? Or a different path you think these characters should have taken? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read them all, and many of your ideas inspire future stories. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Every like and comment helps the channel grow and allows me to keep creating new alternate histories of Westeros for you. Thank you for spending your time here, and I'll see you in the next story. Peace out.